Welcome to Modified Fate, Episode 5, Blank Stare. It's a Crow Trigger. Uh, discard a card, target gains slow and must discard a card. I'm here with Kuro and Crop Circles.
Yay.
How has your week gone?
It's been a roller coaster, and Saturday was terrible, so yeah, no, it's been a thing.
Get anything painted, Kuro?
I'm working on it now. That counts, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
Sure, that counts.
I have another geisha finished.
Awesome.
Nice.
That makes 2 done. The only 2 I have, so I will never play 3 because
Oh, he's left us hanging. Because why?
I don't have a one.
Oh, gotcha.
Mine's secondhand, so
Yeah,
Because who wants to
Which is
pay
not bad.
12 points for geisha?
it's fair.
I mean, better than paying 12 points for Bunraku.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Oh, I know.
The Crop and I played 3 games yesterday.
Yeah.
And he officially hates Alan Reed with a passion.
Alan, kind of a dickhead.
Yeah, it just felt real bad being as completely and thoroughly as I was. Like, there was just nothing I could do. And like looking at models in the 24 hours since then, or slightly more than 24 hours since then, like there are a few things I can do. There are a few options I have, but I have no idea if that's actually going to work at all. I mean, it's a rough matchup regardless. And then he shuts down like a huge part of basically my best model. So it's exciting. Very
Hooligan?
exciting. Alan Reed.
It was Kurai, not Molly.
I was playing Kurai, and he shuts down bonus actions
Yeah.
within 4. So if he gets anywhere near where I need a Goryo to be, the Goryo is decidedly less useful than it was, because Violent Ghosts is crazy, and I can never do it ever again. And if I'm within 4 inches of him, I can't chain gang off my enslaved spirits. It's just fucking terrible. And then on top of that, since I have to do like 20 things under his stupid, boring conversation, eventually it will bite you in the ass. So,
especially with the steward next to him.
you mean the scribe?
Yeah, scribe. I get those two mixed up all the time.
But yeah, and that was the funny part. Anytime I had like, okay, I can get this to work, and then the scribe was like, well, you have to discard a card to cheat. Well, fuck me. It was bad. Yesterday was awful. I hated everything about it.
Yeah. Not my favorite models.
So,
all about the friends we made along the way.
I do think it gets a little better if I have Kari and the Ferryman, but I don't think it ever gets to good. Let's just be clear. That never gets to good. That only gets to, oh, it's not like 90-10. It's only like 70-30. Or some crap. It was terrible. It was rough. It also didn't help that one of those games was the first time I was trying Kurai's title out, which is a lot different. And it was not the right time to do that. That's for damn sure. Like, so she has her only way to put adversary on is her bonus action. And literally for the, what was that, 4 rounds of that game?
Yeah, I red jokered in defense
in
on
his
it.
opening in his opening hand, each round he had the red joker.
Wow.
And the killer part was one time I had the red joker too, but because I flipped higher on the flip, he got to cheat first, and so it fucked me. Like, I do not have words for it.
And then
Can
I
you not
picked up my
cheat
red
against
Joker.
red?
What?
The not cheating on the red was only if it was flip.
No, it's whenever it's played.
Shoot.
So yeah, the short version yesterday was bad.
Yep, and we're going over Molly's keyword today.
Yep.
Take it away, Grop.
Okay, so Molly's keyword is forgotten. It's a bunch of it's basically everything that didn't fit into every other keyword. It ended up with Molly. That said, I kind of love it. So, but as I've said to Cheese, this is a keyword that literally only functions because of Molly. Without her, a lot of these models would be junk. So that being said, what makes Molly good? So all the passive stuff on the front side of her card is great. Her stats are genuinely average: 5 defense, 6 willpower, 5 move, average stuff. Pretty solid though. She has Lethi's Caress, which is if she's your leader and she sees an enemy do something that they've already tried to do that that activation, she deals them 2 damage. So, for example, Kuro and I were playing, and he charged me with Hinamatsu. So Hinamatsu attacked 4 times, and Molly zotted her 3 times because of it. Now, she's got armor. There's a bunch of other stuff going on there. So, wasn't quite as awesome as I was hoping, but the point is, this is something that opponents have to constantly play around. People, like, if you take double walk, you take 2 damage, which is also why if you're playing against Molly and you don't have a reason why you shouldn't, then you should always walk charge. So that way you don't take 2 damage. But that's the thing, is that people always have to find clever ways to get good activations without doubling down, unless it's super important. But that's a big part of playing Molly, is you want her to be able to see a lot of things so that she can catch people on this, because that's free damage, and it has no range. So anytime maps are very open, this ability gets a lot more oppressive. It's only 2 damage, but it's 2 damage all the time. Serene Countenance and Hard to Wound. That's basically the summation of her defense right there. Damage flips suffer a negative, and attack flips suffer a negative. So, she has only 10 hit points, which is low for a Reser Master. So she's not as hard to kill as you would hope, but those 2 things make her inconvenient to kill, I should say. So it's more of a pain. Okay, now this is the moneymaker right here, the Gorgon's Influence. At the start of her activation, she draws cards until she has the same number of cards as her opponent. So this is why Molly's whole crew revolves around discards. And this is why she's able to actually fuel an entire crew that every model wants to discard, sometimes multiple times. But she doesn't have a problem with that because of this. One of the things you have to get into your head when you're playing Molly is that you can't play her like you normally would. Like when you first open your hand and you look at it, a lot of times you try and hold those good cards for just the right moment. Well, not if you're playing Molly. You just go, okay, is this going to give me a good return on investment right now? Bam, gone. Play it now. Is this going to force my opponent to use more resources? Bam, play it now. Because all of that is expendable. You have tons of ways of getting cards back, so you don't care. Like I cheat on initiative when I have no chance of winning, basically, with Molly, just to try and get a card out of my opponent's hand. Sometimes it's just so that I will have less cards in hand than them, which will come into play with some models later. But basically, she's someone where if you draw a terrible hand halfway through the turn, you're gonna draw like a completely new hand and hopefully have good stuff now. So this is what she's all about, is the Gorgon's influence. And then her fading ability, which fading is the like hallmark ability of the Forgotten, which is when they discard cards, they get effects. And hers is an enemy model with an aura 8 gets distracted 1, which is pretty great. It's pretty great. Now, getting Molly to discard cards can be a little tricky, but we'll get to some of that stuff later. So then her backup card. She has one more question, which is an 8-inch range attack that causes slow, and if they're engaged, they suffer 1, 3, 4 damage. She has a stat 6 with a ram built in, and it goes against willpower. Her ram trigger is prey on nothingness, so she can end a condition on the target to make the target suffer a damage, an extra damage. Her tome trigger is draw out secrets, so she can drop a scheme marker in base contact with the target. And then her crow trigger is debt of gratitude, so she can make them remove scheme markers, and if they can't, they take damage. So one more question is really good, and she's got really good triggers for it. Like if you go against like McMorning, simply being able to prey on nothingness and go, okay, I end your poison, I end your poison, I end your poison, and give you slow is pretty good. So then her second attack is Disturbing Story, which is also 8 inches, also against willpower, also a stat 6, and then this one has a target number of 13. The target suffers irreducible damage equal to the difference in the number of cards in its control hand and its maximum hand size, to a maximum of 3. So, if your opponent is at 3 cards, normally if your opponent's at 3 cards, this will do 3 damage. And it's irreducible. So it doesn't care about incorporeal. It doesn't care about armor. A lot of the normal tech to lessen damage. Soulstones doesn't give a shit. So this is the ability that I need to learn to use more because it's super dangerous and I never use it. And I'll explain why when we get to her totem, because I also need to use her totem better. But this also has a trigger on it to stagger the models damaged, which is great. Another thing to keep in mind is this doesn't require a flip. You cannot Black Joker the damage on this. I mean, you can Black Joker the attack, but you can't Black Joker the damage. So, there you go. Then her tactical actions, which honestly, this is what I do most of the time with Molly. Her first one is Constructive Criticism, which is a ranged 8, which, as you'll notice, her fading and all of her actions are range 8. So she wants to be about 8 inches away from people. But anyway, Constructive Criticism, ranged 8, stat 6, needs a 12. Target a friendly Forgotten minion that has already activated. Either this model or the target discards a card. Target may activate a second time this turn. So the cool part there is if you have enemies within 8 of you, Constructive Criticism will let you trigger Molly's fading. If you want to get more distance out of your night terrors, you can use their fading. If you want to load up focus on your rabble riser, you can use their fading. So you get to pick which one it is. Now, she only has 3 minions, which it's good that they're all good. They're all very usable. But she only has 3 minions, and they have to have activated. So, especially early turns, you have to play around activation order with Molly, because otherwise you'll take her turn, and then you'll realize, shit, I can't constructive criticism anyone. And constructive criticism helps ensure activation control in a lot of cases. It also helps you, burn through your opponent's pass markers sometimes, depending on what your opponent decides to do. Then we have Lost Knowledge, also ranged 8, also 6, needs an 11. Remove target marker, draw 2 cards. So this ability is ridiculous.
Simple and elegant.
Yeah, no, the beauty of it is that removing the marker is a cost, so you don't have to succeed. You just go to do it, and the marker is gone. Now, you want the cards because of everything we'll see later, but that's the beautiful part. She can remove Hoffman's pylons. She can remove underbrush markers. She can remove scheme markers, corpses, scrap, like any marker. She can remove it, and that's part of what gives her a ridiculous amount of utility. That, and she really wants those cards. So then her bonus action is Premonition, which is a pulse 4. Any number of friendly models within range may discard a card to gain focused 1 and push 2 inches in any direction. So there's a couple things here with this one. The first of which being, it's friendly models. That one's not keyworded. So she can use it, and she can give, say, the Dead Rider focused without him having to spend actions, which is sexy. But apart from that, when you know that fading is the hallmark ability of her entire crew, being able to force discards on all of them triggers all their fadings and gives them movement and focused. So it's really good. It's really good. It also definitely helps with your unpack, which is nice. So that's Molly. Now, her title is one of the 2 models in this keyword I have not played with yet. And part of the reason is it trades a lot of her utility for some crazy ass movement shenanigans. So she gets Arcane Reservoir. Her fading this time is that if she can see another model with fading, you trigger their fading. So when she discards cards, other people trigger theirs, which is nice.
Yeah, solid.
She still has Hard to Wound. Parade of the Dead, when she activates, if you're within 8, you can discard a card to move up to 3. So it's another way to force discards on models that you want to discard. Then she has Protected Forgotten. Now the cool part with that is when she triggers Protected, because of her fading, she's going to trigger someone else's fading whenever she goes to protect herself, which is cool. But then her actions, she has Leading Baton, which, so regular Molly doesn't have a normal damage track anywhere on her card, but her title, Chaotic Conductor, does. It's a 1/2/6, and it pushes 3 inches in any direction. Also, it's a 2-inch attack, which is pretty special. She has Deja Vu, which is Crow, discard a card, draw 2 cards, and she has Know the Way, which is Mask. Another friendly forgotten model within line of sight can move up to 3. So leading baton is all movement tricks.
Yeah, you kind of want to hit your own models with low crows to discard and draw with that.
Yeah, I mean that's the dream. The dream is you want to hit your models, so that you get minimum damage, and you want to get one of the two triggers, preferably Deja Vu. But if you get if you get the second one, then you're moving two models 3 inches each.
Yep.
That's pretty great. So it's got some good stuff to it. Now, I will say this. The severe 6 damage is something that could be really useful when you need it, or it could pop up randomly when you flip a red joker because you tapped your own model for 7 damage. So it's not without risk. It's not without considerable risk. But that's leading baton. Then this time her big action is parade route, which is range 8, 6 with a ram against movement, TN of 10. It cannot target the same model more than once per activation. You push the target 5 inches in any direction, ignoring models in terrain. Enemy models within 2 inches of the target must pass a TN 13 move duel or suffer 2 damage. So that in and of itself is pretty sweet, because she can position her own models, she can position your models, and at the end there's that sort of explosion for potential damage. So
it's a lot like Avalanche.
Sweet. It's a lot like Avalanche, actually, especially when we get to Bloody Feet or Bleeding Feet. Her tome trigger is, when resolving, the target suffers 1 irreducible damage for each model and non-terrain marker moved through this way, to a maximum of 3. So if you push someone, say, across a couple corpses and a scheme marker, they take 3 irreducible damage. So at that point, it feels a lot like Avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
But then her built-in trigger is Walk with Pride. Once per turn, friendly only. Target must discard a card. So remember, we're going to be triggering the fading of whoever we do this to. Target may take the interact action even if engaged. So you push them 5 inches and they interact even if they're engaged, which is pretty sweet. Now, if you do this on, say, a Night Terror, their fading ability moves them 5 inches as well. So you push 5 inches, move 5 inches, then interact. So I've effectively slingshotted something 10 inches away and got a scheme marker down. So there's cool stuff there. Her tactical actions, positive reinforcement, also 8 inches. You'll notice that Molly really likes 8 inches, just in general.
Oh, yeah, she does.
Boo. Anyway, stat 6, TN 13. Friendly Forgotten only. This action cannot target the same model more than once. Target gains focused 1 and heals 1, 2, 3. And it has the Deja Vu trigger. So, she doesn't have premonition like she had before, but she's still really good at handing out focus to her models. So, and the Deja Vu trigger is fantastic. So, and remember, every time she triggers Deja Vu, she's going to also trigger the fading of someone she can see. So, interesting thing there. Okay, and then her last ability is bonus action, Remember the Lost. 8-inch aura. Until the end phase, once per activation, friendly Forgotten models within range may cheat fate with the top card of their fate deck. If they pass a duel this way by 2 or more, draw a card.
Really good.
So that's especially good with things like positive reinforcement, where it's a static TN. Like I'm not going against you. So anytime you have a simple duel like that, it's really good, because then I don't have to worry about you trying to up the ante. I can just try and actually succeed. And keep in mind, things like the Forgotten Marshal can summon extra people. Each one of those people, when they do their own duels, are going to have chances to trigger this. So you can, I mean, it's not guaranteed, which is, I think, part of the problem with Chaotic Conductor versus regular Molly. Regular Molly, there's a lot of just guaranteed big draw, and this time there's not. But there's still a lot of card manipulation and drawing in here. So that's Molly. And then go down to
I think I like
Necrotic
Molly too.
Machine. So her totem is the Necrotic Machine. It has pretty standard stats. It's 5 defense, 4 willpower, 5 move. Inexplicably, it's size 2. Because I always thought it was definitely shorter. But, you know, whatever works. It has armor 2, which is fantastic. It's only got 4 health. But a lot of times armor 2, if you play it right, means that they're going to have to hit it at least 3 times. But one of its crazy abilities is neurotoxins. Enemy models with the poison condition within 3 cannot use soul stones or declare triggers. So, that one, it's not always going to be super applicable, but if you go after anything that can use soul stones, it's pretty baller. Ceaseless Advance. During the end phase, if the opposing player has no cards in their control hand, this model can push 2 inches and take an action. I have never had this trigger. That is not because it is a bad ability, and it's not because it cannot trigger. That's because I'm still working on playing Necrotic Machine better, because I lean really hard into Strange Behavior, which I'll talk about here in a second. But it is a cool ability, and it can give you some pretty unexpected plays. So then the fading on the Necrotic Machine is a friendly master within line of sight heals 1. So if you trigger his, he heals Molly. Fantastic. Then he has Accomplice, which is honestly probably his best ability, I think. After this model ends its activation, a friendly model within 6 that is not activated may discard a card or pass token to do so. Since this is Molly, you're always going to discard a card. For a lot of reasons, not the least of which being so that you'll have less cards when you trigger Gorgon's Influence. But the really cool part is whoever he accomplices into is the one discarding the card. So keep that in mind when you want to trigger fading. His attack is Venomous Strike. 1 inch, 5 stat, defense. Target suffers 2, 3, 4 damage and gains poisoned 1. So in and of itself, it's pretty okay. But then it has 3 triggers that are all pretty great. It's got Puncture, so it can get positive flips to the damage if you get rams. Draining Strike, which is the tome trigger. So you discard a card, which will heal Molly. And then your opponent must discard a card, which is great. And then Infect, so we can, if we have crows, we can get extra poison onto them. Also good. But then we get to its tactical actions, and honestly, Strange Behavior is what I do 9 times out of 10. So Strange Behavior, stat 6, needs a target number of 10. The opposing player draws the top card of their discard pile. If that card was a moderate or severe card, this model may move up to 3 inches and take an action. So, what this means, like, I realize that ability sounds god-awful. Because, once again, in any other crew, it would be god-awful. Or I feel like it would be mostly god-awful. But what you do is, you activate your Necrotic Machine, you use Strange Behavior to get your opponent back up to like 5 or 6 cards in hand. Then you discard a card for the Accomplice so that you go immediately with Molly. And then by then you should be at like 1 or 2 cards and they should be at 5 or 6. So you're maximizing that draw. It's worth putting a moderate in their hand under the caveat. I guess it's worth putting a moderate in their hand. It is almost never worth putting a severe in their hand. So keep that in mind. But the cool part is, for strange behavior, you can, if you put a moderate in their hand, you can move 3 inches and do strange behavior again. Or you can move 3 inches, lay a scheme marker, move 3 inches, get focused. Like, it's got a lot of utility to it, which is fantastic. And then his last ability is Emergency Siret, which is a 2-inch, 5-stat, target number 10, friendly only, target heals 1, 2, 3, and ends the poison condition. So it's just a little bit of first aid, which is really nice. It's gravy. That's a good bonus action to have, honestly. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's the reason you don't use that Molly ability a lot. Disturbing Story.
No, and that's the
because
thing.
you fill their hand back up.
Is that I keep trying to maximize my draw with him, which is why I almost never use Disturbing Story, and I need to get more flexible about that because he has a lot of things he can do. Like, if he charges someone and hits them, they're poisoned, so then you can immediately accomplice into someone else that you want to kill that model because they won't be able to do triggers or use soul stones. Like, there's a lot of cool things he can do, and I literally use him for the one weirdest trick he has, which is fill your opponent's hand. So I'm still working with it. So now we get to Molly's Henchman, which is the other model I've never played. It's Philip and the Nanny. So he's only 8 cost, which is good, because his defenses are hot garbage. He's got 4 defense, 6 willpower, 5 move. He's manipulative, so until you activate with him, they have minuses to attack him. Deadly Pursuit is pretty sweet. At the end of the phase, during the end phase, he can push 4 inches. He's starting to make sense. Is a 6-inch aura where if your opponent gets focused, they get 2 damage. Chatty is also a 6-inch aura where they have to discard a card to take the interact action. But you'll notice that the only defensive thing he has so far is manipulative. I guess I should say in manipulative and use Soulstone because he's a henchman. That's it. And he's got 9 hit points. So 4 defense does him no favors. But the ability that actually makes him interesting is Rambling Man. After a friendly model within 3 discards a card, if it has a fading ability, this model may also gain the effect of that ability. So if you're within 3 inches of him, when you do your fading, he's going to get the benefit too, which is sweet. And when we get to talking about Night Terrors, you'll see how Philip is oddly super freaking fast. But he has to have a Night Terror. So that's a whole thing there too. So his attacks, he has Pram Ram. It's a 1-inch melee 5-stat versus defense. If this action was generated by a charge, it receives a plus to the duel, and it's 2, 3, 5 damage. It has the puncture trigger. Mask, it has the accidental rollover. So you push this model 5 inches, ignoring any models. Models that this model moved through suffer a damage and gain a poison, which is kind of cool. And then Mutilate, which is Crow. If the target has slow, it suffers +1 damage. Otherwise, it gains slow. So it's not a bad attack, but it is a stat 5, and there are some times where no amount of positives on the flip are going to make up for the fact that you have a 5. But then he also has one more question. His is way different for the most part because it lacks 2 of Molly's triggers. But anyway, So 8 inches, 6 stat against willpower, target gains slow, 1/3/4 damage. Got it. Mask trigger is boring topic. Models within 3 inches of this model must each pass a TN 12 willpower duel or gain slow, which is kind of cool. And he has Debt of Gratitude. Debt of Gratitude's, I feel like the moneymaker for him. Because it's like having 2 models with that makes it it's really hard to score scheme marker schemes against Forgotten. They have a lot of ways of kind of dealing with that, and not the least of which being that you have Molly and Philip both with Debt of Gratitude.
And Kruligans.
We'll get to the Kruligans later. I figure you guys will complain enough about them. So
Yeah, we'll save them for last.
I figured we would. They are easily the most efficient thing in the entire keyword. Maybe the most efficient minion. I don't know. But tactical action is boring conversation, which is a 6-inch aura. Stat 6 needs a 13. Until the end phase, if an enemy within range declares a non-walk, they have to pass a TN 10 willpower duel or fail the action. So here's the problem.
Yeah, it's a bit of Scornergy.
Yeah, you saw it.
Yeah, he doesn't want to activate early, but he wants to activate early.
Yep. He wants to get that boring conversation bubble up so that he has some amount of security. It's not great, but it's effectively like giving him Terrifying 10 that you can't get around with Ruthless. So, okay, cool.
Well, you can stack it with Terrifying too, so you just have him around your Terrifying models. Be extra.
Well, I mean, I'm just talking about for his own protection right now. But you're right. You can use it in conjunction with things like Archie or Rogue Necromancy, which is pretty great. But for him, the minute he puts the boring conversation up, he stops being manipulative, which manipulative to me feels like it's overall a better thing for him to have. So it's rough. Mm-hmm. It's a bit of Scornergy. That being said, if your opponent is playing super melee focused, boring conversation can fucking ruin their day. I'm not speaking from experience or bitter at all. Fuck you, Alan Reed.
Lifelong nemesis.
Basically now. Okay, so now we have the Rogue Necromancy, which is a model that she shares with Dr. McMorning. And by share, I mean she broke into McMorning's lab and released it because she wanted it to run free. So we have this giant undead chimera, defense 4, willpower 5, movement 5, size 3, cost 10. So its defense is pretty garbage. Its willpower is okay. Terrifying 11 is a good start. Hard to wound, also good. Hard to kill.
I always forget it has this.
You and me both, because I let you kill it that one time. it just died. But I mean, that hard to kill is the one to remember because of the next 2 abilities. Its fading is it gives itself +2 poison whenever it discards cards. And then the ability Perverse Metabolism says that if this model would suffer damage from poison, instead it heals that amount. So that's why you have to always pay attention to hard to kill, because if it gets hard to kill and if it gets hit, goes down to hard to kill, and you make it to the end of that round, well, then its poison is gonna push it back up over hard to kill again. So anytime you can regen, air quotes, with hard to kill, it's pretty good. The problem here is poison goes off in between rounds. Mm-hmm. So you got to be more careful with it. It's still really good, don't get me wrong. Like when I was playing this guy on Saturday, he had like 6 or 7 poison, so he was regenning 3 every round. So it did take a while for him to get chewed through. Now, he did get chewed through, just to be clear. He died very horribly. But they are surprisingly resilient for something with 4 defense. But all of that is good. All of the front side is good, but why you take him is his melee attack. Savage Bite. 1-inch melee, 6 with a plus twist. Defense. Target suffers 3, 4, 5 damage. And if that's all it was, I'd still be pretty happy. But it has 3 triggers. Puncture, so we can get positives on damage too, because why not? Pouncing Strike, so that crop circles can overcommit him and get him killed. It's a mask. Place this model into base contact with another enemy within 5 and in a line of sight. Then take this action again, targeting that enemy. Now, this also does let you get to that sort of squishy underbelly on some crews. And sometimes it can be worth having him torn up so that you rampage around the back line. Because even though he's super easy to hit, he's got 10 hit points, he's hard to wound, hard to kill. So they have to commit if they want him dead. Now, if they commit, he will probably die, just to be clear. Especially in Molly. McMorning has a few more tricks to make him surprisingly resilient, but Molly is just really good at stacking up his fading. Anyway, his last one is Infect, which is always solid. Then he has a range attack that's, I feel, is really good. The only downside is it's a stat 5. But Projectile Vomit, 8-inch range, stat 5 with a crow against movement. Target suffers 1 with 2 blasts, 1 with 3 blasts damage. Models damaged by this action gain Distracted 1 and Poison 1. So, the problem I normally have with Projectile Vomit is that if you have shielded or you're incorporeal, this attack does jack and or shit to you. But the reason I like it with him, with the Rogue Necromancy, is his second trigger, which is Necrotic Decay. This model may suffer up to 2 damage. When resolving, target suffers +1 damage per damage suffered by this trigger. So you can force damage through to get the juicy, distracted, and poison that you want. So that's really good. Now, the other option is Blank Stare. Discard a card, target gains slow and discards a card. That trigger doesn't care about damage, which is great. But it's nice that he has something to pump his damage to kind of force it through on shielded and incorporeal models, because a lot of times models with Projectile Vomit don't. And despite how awesome that attack is, it's not high damage, so you can get around it. So then his tactical action is Ambush. If this model is not in concealing terrain, it must discard a card. If this model is not engaged, it may move up to 3 inches. So there's a couple of things here. First of which being, you never want him in concealing terrain, because with Molly, you want him discarding that card. You want him getting his toxicity. Second thing, if you need more poison, you can do this in melee. You discard a card, and it does nothing other than trigger his fading, but it will trigger his fading. So, there you go. I'm a big fan of him. I do think that McMorning uses him slightly better than Molly. And then McMorning 2 uses him a lot better than literally everyone. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, he's probably my second favorite of the big guys that we're going over here quickly.
Okay, so then we get Archie. And Archie is a weird bag. He costs 9, but has 11 health, so that's pretty great. However, when you look at his stats, you get depressed. He's 4 defense, 4 willpower, 4 movement, height 3. You can't really hide him. Doesn't move quick in and of himself. We'll get to how he actually moves. And then his defenses are hot garbage. His fading ability is Brain Freeze. So when he discards a card, he heals 1, 2, 3 based on the value of the discarded cards, or one of the discarded cards. So that's actually pretty sweet. Because his built-in way to discard is Flurry. Once per turn, when he resolves a melee, you can discard a card to make him do it again. So that's already pretty sweet. He's hard to wound. He has Numbskull, which is... it's a benefit and a hindrance. He can never get focused, which is bad. He can also never get distracted, burning, poison. Gosh, I can't even think. Slow, yeah. He can never get any of those. So that in and of itself is pretty sweet. You just have to keep in mind that if you, for instance, want to trigger Premonition and he's in there, remember, all you're going to get is his fading and the movement. You will not get your focus. So then he has Rush. When he takes a charge, he gets plus 2 inches. So he charges 6 inches, which that's actually pretty good. And then he's Terrifying 12, which is also pretty good. But if something can ignore Terrifying, then he's a 4 defense, 4 willpower model with hard to wound. That's it. So keep that in mind. Like he's... the thing is, he's resilient, but he's not forgiving. If you put him in the wrong spot, he just dies. If you play him well, he never dies. I play him not so well. So he dies. Right now, I think I've got it up to he dies about 50% of the time, which is a huge improvement for me, because it was 100.
I feel like we should make that worse now.
Yeah, I think he's lived against me one time.
Yeah, no, I'm excited that he lived against you one time, because every other time he just gets destroyed. Anyway, so he's got Flurry. His melee attack action is Stellar. Huge Fist, 1 inch reach, stat 6, defense. Target suffers 3, 4, 6. And then it has 3 great triggers. We've got Sweeping Strike for Tome, so he adds a blast to it. There are stupid things that you can do with that blast that will ruin friendships. I say this as someone who killed Chio off of a blast damage. So, sorry. Then he has Mask, which is bowled over. You push the target 4 inches, then you push him 4 inches towards the target. So, that's some extra movement shenanigans, extra repositioning, always nice. Then he has Dismember. This is probably the worst trigger for him. So enemy living, undead, or beast, they drop a corpse in base contact with him. That can be very useful. The downside is like that. The other two give Archie immediate benefits, and that one doesn't. So it does give you things to Lost Knowledge, if nothing else. So then his ranged attack, which I don't think I have ever done, is Hurl Corpse. 8 inch range, 6 attack on defense. Choose a corpse marker within 2 and place it into base contact with your target. Target suffers 2, 3, 4 damage. This also has 3 great triggers, though. Ram is Tear Off a Bite, so we heal 2. Tome is Spread It Around, so once again we add blast damage, but this time models damaged will also gain staggered. And then Mask is push models damaged by this action 3 inches, so Mass Hysteria. So all great. And then his tactical actions, which I'm not gonna lie, Mournful Memories is a great tactical action.
Mm-hmm.
During his activation, the next duel he makes receives either one suit of your choice or a positive on it. Like, that's a great ability. I never use it because I'm always using Leap. Because as noted, by himself, Archie is real slow. So you always, when you're playing Molly, you're always watching for masks, specifically so that you have something to make Archie jump. So he has a stat 6. He needs a 10 with a mask to place this model anywhere within range. So you place 6 inches away, which is awesome. It makes Archie shockingly fast, but you have to make sure that you save your low masks for him, or I should say your 4 up mask for him. So but all that being said, once I kind of started getting the hang of him, I love Archie. Archie's fantastic. But he looks tough, but he's not. He is not tough. Even more so than the, like I said, that if they focus on him, the Rogue Necromancy will die. Archie is worse. Even though he has more hit points and better terrifying, Archie is worse. If they focus on him, he will die faster. So, also because, I'm not gonna lie, Archie can do anything. Just about. Like, he's really important for the Krooligans that they mentioned, because he moves so fast and he can put them places they shouldn't be. So if you're playing against Molly, kill Archie if you can. It's going to be tough if your opponent is smart and doesn't donate him to you on the first turn. But
who would do that?
who would do that multiple times? I don't know. But he is great. He's a wonderful model. This is a clear case where Archie would be. I feel like Archie's kind of garbage with anyone else, but because of Molly, he's able to kind of keep running and keep doing well. So I like Archie.
He's third for me.
He's third for you?
This guy's number 1. Noxious. I saw the light when you were playing him.
Even though you kept saying the whole game, traitor.
Well, yeah, I was playing Nephilim.
That's fair. So,
in his defense, he's dead now, so I have a lot of say in it.
This is all true. Okay, so the Noxious Nephilim is the model that Molly shares with the Nephilim keyword. And oddly enough, like, I've seen Cheese play him in Nephilim, where he did okay, but he literally didn't give him anything that his other models weren't doing, and oftentimes doing better.
Yeah, he's just too slow.
So it was just However, with Molly, I'm really liking him. So he's got garbage defense, 4 with Crow, 4 willpower, 5 movement, size 3. So his stats are nothing to be excited about. His defense trigger is enemy only, drawn to pain. After resolving, if this model has suffered damage, push it 4 inches towards the attacking model. This is a good trigger to have. It is not one that I ever look to use. It's a nice thing to have the option of, but I like, and Cheese will tell you, I never tried to set up any crazy things with it, because I didn't want him closer to them. He has flight. Flight's fantastic. A lot of Molly's crew has to deal with terrain, so having someone who doesn't is awesome. Hard to wound, pretty much what you'd expect. By this point, having a model not having hard to wound would be the surprising part. Memories of Blood. So this guy used to be a Nephilim. Well, I guess he still is, but used to be alive. So he ignores damage caused by black blood. After this model suffers damage from an action or trigger other than Last Memory, which is one of his actions, another friendly Forgotten or Nephilim within 4 inches may take this model's Last Memory action. So we'll talk about what that lets you do when we talk about last memory. Last thing on the front side is he has Regen 2, which is great. Regen 2 is fantastic, and he definitely needs it. So, flipping to the back side of his card, he has Heavy Claws, which are fantastic. 2-inch reach, 6 stat, 3/4/6 damage. So this guy hits like Archie, which is fantastic. We want things that are gonna mess people up. Crow Trigger is Rampage. Push this model 5 inches, ignoring models. Each model the moves through any models such that this model moves through the target. Models this model push through this way must each pass a TN13 move or suffer a damage. So there's not a lot of damage, but it's got a lot of possibility. His other trigger is Tear Off a Bite. When you have 11 hit points and hard to wound, you want to regen as much as you can. So Tear Off a Bite is pretty great with him. Then he has Bring It, 12-inch range, 6 stat, willpower, 13 target number. Target moves its move +2 towards this model. Then the target must take a melee action that cannot declare triggers targeting this model. If able, any damage flips from the generated action suffer a negative. So, Bring It is like cracked out lure, because you're getting movement +2, but there's that possibility they'll hit you. But the cool thing is, like I said, this guy is really good with Molly. Regular Molly doesn't have a melee attack. So if you bring it her, she just walks to you. That's it. It's pretty great. Now, where this can get crazy, though, is if you do it with Chaotic Conductor, you can bring it. She walks up to you, hits you, pushes you 3 inches, and then because she hit you, Memories of Blood goes off, and then you'll get to have her do Last Memory, which will let her trigger someone's fading. So there's cool interconnected stuff there. But the big thing is Bring It lets him kind of pull Molly along with him, which is great because he actually makes a pretty good bodyguard for her. So now we're finally at Last Memory. Once per turn, discard a card and suffer 1 damage. Draw a card. So this action is one that I do all the time, but never with this model. I'm always using this to trigger other models fading. So if you have Molly 1 and he gets hit, well, Molly can cycle a card and then give Distracted to the thing that's beating him up, so that their second swing is going to have a rough time. Like Molly 2 can pass the attack off to him, trigger someone's fading, and then he gets hit. She can use Last Memory to do fading again for someone else. So there's a lot of cool tricks you can do with him and Molly, which is pretty great. He has Rancid Smell, which, if you want him to bodyguard for Molly, that's a good way to do it. Rancid Smell is 4-inch aura, 5 stat, need a 12. Until the end phase, enemy models within range suffer a negative to actions targeting models other than this model. Now, the downside, of course, is he has a 4 defense. He is hardly indestructible. He's very destructible. You have to play very careful with him. And then his bonus action is Regurgitate. This model suffers 2 damage. Drop a corpse marker into base contact. So that was the ability that at first I thought, well, this is stupid. When am I ever going to use this with Molly? And literally, you can ask Cheese. I used it like every round but one. Because when you do it, he takes damage. So that means someone else will get to trigger his Last Memories. And then the corpse marker is a marker for Molly to use lost knowledge on, if nothing else. Obviously, Rezzers have a lot of ways to use corpse markers, but that's just the surface level. So, and at the surface level, it's worth it. So the thing that really kills me about this guy is he's 9 points. So, as much as I love the Rogue Necromancy, I don't know if I'm ever going to take the Rogue Necromancy again with Molly. I might. But this guy does what I want. He gives me a piece that can hit really hard, and he gives me a lot of utility. So, I'm a fan. So then, Molly's last enforcer that is out currently. She has a new enforcer and a new henchman coming, but is the Forgotten Marshal. And the Forgotten Marshal is kind of boring. And there's nothing wrong with that because he does things that no one else does. So once again, almost all of Molly's enforcers are defense 4, which is rough. It takes getting used to. But he's defense 4, willpower 5, move 5, size 2. Hard to wound, hard to kill, unnatural vigor, which is when killing an enemy model, he heals 2. Great. And then he has Calm Their Madness. After a friendly model is summoned within 4 inches, it may discard a card to heal 1. So, yeah, seems odd that he has that when no one summons in this crew. Well, now that you mentioned it. I'll start with his tactical action because that's what you're taking him for. Release the Dead. It's a stat 6. Name a forgotten minion with a lower cost than this model. The TN of this action is 10 plus the cost 10 crow plus the cost of the named model. Summon the named model with a madness upgrade attached in basic contact with this model. So, Molly has 3 minions. He can summon those 3 minions because they cost 4, 5, and 6. It's a bonus action for him to summon, so you can move him twice and then drop the person off, which can oftentimes be pretty great. The Madness upgrade makes them take damage equal to half their health, rounded up, and then makes them slowed.
Oh, he can only have 2 summons. Didn't realize that.
Well, you keep killing them, so... But that's why you calm their madness. Also, calming their madness will trigger their fading. And honestly, the 2 things I summon with him most of the time are Rabble Risers and Night Terrors, who both get some immediate value out of discarding cards. It's not that it's not worth summoning a Kruligan. It's just that I usually start by hiring 2 Kruligans.
As you should.
I wonder why.
We'll get to why. But so his actions, his melee action is Pine Box, because the Forgotten Marshal used to be a Death Marshal. He used to work for the guild, and I forget what happened to him.
He clearly died.
So did the guild. And yeah, clearly he died since then. But so Pine Box is range 0, stat 2 versus size, enemy only. They get distracted 1 and are buried. When they activate, they must attempt a TN 13 willpower duel. If they pass, or if the Forgotten Marshal is killed, you unbury in contact with this model. And then he has a couple of triggers. Leeching Strength, choose a buried model. The chosen model suffers 1 damage, and this model heals 1. And Mental Trauma. The target must either discard a card or suffer 3 damage. Both of those are crow triggers. Not bad. I will say, however, that if you are at range 0 from something that you actually want to Pine Box, you are far too close. I say this because the other thing he brings to your crew that you just don't have otherwise is a gun. He has a very boring gun that's actually real solid. So Peacebringer, 12-inch range, stat 6 versus defense, target suffers 2-3-5, and then it has critical strike. So it's nothing fancy, it's nothing to write home about, but if you focus, take a Peacebringer shot, release the dead, then you're doing pretty good. After playing him a few times, I never take him without the Whisper. Because, yes, Molly draws lots of cards. Molly does lots of stuff. But I want to make sure that when it's his turn, that I can look and I can see, I have a card to summon someone with, or I have a good card to attack with. I want to know what I'm doing with him. But especially since his summon is a bonus action and only happens once a turn, I want to make sure that it doesn't get screwed. So, the Whisper. There you go there. So I think that's all of her current current enforcers.
See.
Okay, so now we get to the Rabble-Riser, which is one of her minions. So this also starts the interesting things of all of her, or almost all of her enforcers have a defense of 4. All of her minions have defenses of 5. But Rabble-Riser is 5/5/5. Hard to wound, fantastic. Blade Rush, when it charges, it can move through models, and if it moves through you, you suffer a damage. Also fantastic. It's fading, gives it a focused, bloody fantastic, and it has flurry. So Rabble-Risers are not exciting. They do not do anything like earth-shattering. They are just a pile of good abilities that all run together. So their melee attack is a sword, 1-inch, 5 stat versus defense. Target suffers 2-3-4 damage with critical strike and quick reflexes. Quick reflexes being mask to take this action again, targeting a different model. So here's what happens. I have never hired one of these. I, however, have almost always summoned at least 2 of them over the course of a game with the Forgotten Marshal. So you summon them. They take 4 damage. You use Calm Their Madness to discard a card, which heals them 1 and gives them focus. They charge something. Use the focused. So that's 1 focused attack. You then discard a card for the flurry, which gives them back focused. And then they swing their second attack, which is also focused. So that's the thing, is they are way more dangerous than a model that is stat 5 should be. And they are just survivable enough. But basically, if you want damage, these guys do damage. And that's what they're there for. They also have Challenge, which is a bonus action, 8 inches, stat 5, versus willpower, 13 target number. Until the end phase or when this model is killed, the target must discard a card to target any model other than this model with an action. And then they have a crow trigger on it to daze the target and push it 3 inches. Or sorry, stun the target and push it 3 inches. They have the daze trigger. So, there's few things more frustrating than, oh, this is my garbage summon that has 4 hit points, but you know what? Until you actually kill him, he's a pain in the ass. And that's the thing, is if you don't kill them, they will do damage. they will get the job done, which is pretty crazy. I'm a big fan of them. Someday I'll even, hire them, but we'll see about that.
Another good thing about challenge is you can challenge like somebody's healer, and then they have to discard to heal anything that's not the Rebel Riser.
Yeah, because it works on like friendly actions too. It's not just, oh, you targeted the wrong opposing model. No, you targeted the wrong model. If you want to heal, you have to heal me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we're at the Night Terror. So once again, 5/5/5 height 2 or size 2. I'm a big fan. Molly has good minions. They're weird and they all have their own niche, but I like them. So Night Terrors have flight. They have enveloping darkness. Models within 3 inches have concealment. So Night Terrors always have concealment. Things next to Night Terrors always have concealment. It's pretty great. They're agile. This model may leave the engagement range of enemy models with the walk action. Sweet. Its fading is amazing. So after it discards a card, it may push 5 inches in any direction, ignoring models. Models moved through this way must pass a TN13 move duel or suffer 1 damage. So this is why when I was talking about parade route earlier, if you parade route these guys, they're moving 10 inches and then dropping a scheme marker, and it's crazy. Now, the downside is, of course, parade route is a attack action, so enveloping darkness makes it more difficult. It doesn't make it impossible, though. Even apart from that, Molly, too, if she can see them, she can keep using her fading to trigger their fading, which lets them move around a ton. So that moving around can let you do all sorts of crazy things with them, which is pretty awesome. If not for the last minion we'd have, I'd say this is the best scheme runner you could have. But I was going to say Kuro and Cheese know that I would be lying if I said that. Anyway, their attack. Clawed wings, 1 inch reach, 5 stat, defense. If this model's controller has fewer cards in its control hand than the opposing player, the target cannot declare triggers during this duel. Target suffers 1, 3, 4 damage. Mask, you're coming with me. Push the target up to 3 inches, then place this model in base contact. Or the Crow trigger, Fear of the Dark. Discard a card, target gains staggered. So discard a card, target gains staggered is okay, until you remember that, oh, it's not discard a card, target gains staggered. It's discard a card, target gains staggered. I push 5 inches, and anyone I pass over has to make a move duel or suffer damage. So you can swoop in, clawed wings someone, Fear of the Dark, and pull yourself out. Or you can go further in on them. There's all sorts of options there. It's pretty great. So then their tactical action, Negation Aura, 3 inch Aura, 5 stat, needs a 10. Until the end phase, enemy models within range must each discard a card to cheat fate, and it comes with a mask reposition trigger. So, Night Terrors are bats in the very literal sense. They just fly around everywhere. And they are something that's nice to pull out against, honestly, against crews that have tough times dealing with concealment. Like, if you think about it, like McMorning 2, what is it? Desperate Ploy is an attack action. So if I want to Desperate Ploy someone who's within 3 inches of the Night Terror, oh, suddenly I have to spend a stone or it's at a negative. So there's a lot going on there. But between the enveloping darkness and the negation aura, they can be a real pain in the ass. That said, they draw a lot of aggro. So, okay. So now we're finally at the last model. So this is the Kruligan. The Kruligan is 5 defense, 5 willpower, 4 move, size 1. Costs 4. It has From the Shadows, so it can be deployed at the start of the game rather than during deployment, and if you do so, it has to be at least 6 inches away from any deployment zone and cannot interact. That's a nice ability. It's almost never worthwhile on them because of their last ability on the front side here. But they have Hard to Wound, which is nice. Fading is when this model discards any cards, it can remove an enemy scheme marker from within 2 and line of sight. So the thing to keep in mind, like I said, it's very difficult to score scheme marker related schemes against Molly.
I would say near impossible.
She has ways to remove tokens. These guys have ways to remove tokens, because that's not their only way to remove a scheme marker either. So it's rough. It's real rough. So then their last ability is By Your Side. At the start of this model's activation, it may discard a card to place itself within 2 inches of a friendly non-minion that shares a keyword with it. So, the thing to keep in mind here is it has to be a non-minion. So, you've got Molly and the Necrotic Machine always. Then, it depends on who you want to take. Archie is always a good target for this, because he can use his turn to get into crazy places, and then suddenly there's a Kruligan there to drop a scheme marker, or plant explosives, or attack the target. There's a lot of options. But By Your Side is the moneymaker for these guys. It's the ability that makes them sweet. Sweet if you play them, and infuriating if you don't. So then on their backside, their melee attack is Sharp Debris, 1 inch, stat 5, defense. If this model's controller has fewer cards in its control hand than the opposing player, the target cannot cheat fate during this duel. Keep in mind that using By Your Side is discarding a card, so then you can, discarding a card, get lower than your opponent. Which then means, like if you're both at 5 cards and you use By Your Side, now you're at 4, and your opponent suddenly can't cheat against Sharp Debris. Target suffers 1/3/4 damage, and it has the Tome Drop It trigger. Enemy only. Target must drop an enemy scheme marker in base contact with itself in line of sight of this model. So, the thing with this is they are not crazy damage dealers, but what they are is basically a pack of hyena children that will take down wounded and injured gazelles, because they swoop in off of the By Your Side, and you make sure you have less cards than your opponent so they can't cheat, and then you hit them with a focused attack or 2, just to try and get that 3. You're just trying to get moderate damage, which is very doable, and you can do very well that way. Their other attack is Expert Thief, 1 inch melee, 5 stat against defense. You can only target a model that can use soul stones. Target must discard a soul stone. If it does, add 1 to this crew's soulstone pool, and then it has the reposition trigger. So for that one, I don't use it that often, but it's definitely one of those where if you can wait until late to activate them, you might be able to swoop in and take a soulstone or 2 off of someone. So there's some opportunities there. Molly, in and of herself, because of her ridiculous amount of card draw, doesn't need as many stones as a lot of people do. But she can always use them, so there's no reason not to take them. Last thing, tactical action, forage, 2-inch range, remove target enemy scheme marker. Draw the top card of this model's discard pile. That one is pretty crazy. I say because it's another way to gain cards in your hand, and Molly has uses for all of the garbage cards you draw. I won't say that she doesn't care what she draws, but she has a use for all the garbage. So removing an enemy scheme marker and getting any card is worth it. So, especially since you can buy your side them next to one of your models. Their fading goes off, removes a scheme marker. They can then forage and remove another scheme marker and draw the card that you discarded to buy your side them. Like, they're pretty great. Honestly speaking, this is the best model in the keyword. And if By Your Side was not keyword locked, they would be busted as hell. As it stands, they're phenomenally good. That's my opinion. Now, for the rebuttal, Cheese and Kuro will now complain about them.
Oh no, I completely. If it was not keyword locked, they would be completely busted.
Yeah,
And keyword, they're still pretty damn strong.
yeah. The only issue I have with Kruligans is By Your Side, because it is a largely enforcer teleport ability, and the only similar model that is a minion has a much more restricted teleport.
I will say
In
that clearly
Sidekick.
they listened to you, Cheese, because if you look at Keepside Strangers, they have Sidekick instead of By Your Side.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Sidekick is the same thing, except you have to be able to see the model you're teleporting to, and you teleport into base contact with that model. And they have to be within 12.
Yeah.
See, this has counterplay. That's why it's okay, in my opinion. And Kruligans don't.
their counterplay is kill everything.
The counterplay is to keep the
just casually kill
away from where you need them to be. I didn't say that it's easier.
But casually kill 11 hit point hard to wound enforcers. It's fine.
My problem
all the time.
My issue is that turn 1, Archie moves roughly 18 inches between 6-inch charge with rush, leap plus 2-inch base.
Yeah, plus
another walk.
6 inches plus the size of his base plus
somewhere around 18 inches.
Yeah.
And then the Kruligan just goes, I discard a card because I do that anyway. Port. And then the Kruligan's going to double walk and be 26 inches from your deployment zone.
I mean, let's be honest. The first turn, most of the time, the Kruligan's not going to be doing that because they're going to be building up. But yes, when you have a random turn where it's like, oh, I guess I need to score outflank. Well, Archie goes from the middle of the board to the corner. Kruligan teleports to him, scores the scheme.
Yeah, it's
because that does happen all the time. That's why like outflank is really like Molly likes outflank. She likes information overload. She likes espionage. You know, she likes all those kinds of schemes because she can do stupid Archie tricks and drop Kruligans off.
Between the movement and mobility options you have with them and the marker removal, I am very envious playing 10 Thunders because I can do movement but not that much movement. And I have almost no marker removal whatsoever. And if I do, it's like replace a marker with a different marker. Whereas these guys are like, I port, remove a marker, and a quick action, remove a marker, on top of Molly removing markers. Like, if your opponent scores any kind of marker scheme, you let them, or you played horrible.
It takes a lot of effort, a lot of very specific effort to score most marker schemes against Forgotten, especially to get 2 points off of any marker scheme against Forgotten.
And these guys would still be taken if they replaced By Your Side with Sidekick. Just saying. What versatiles do you usually think about?
Death.
In the world of versatiles, the big one for me is Dead Rider. So Molly has all sorts of good things that she wants to do, but you know what she doesn't want to spend time doing? Walking. And so Dead Rider is great. Now, apart from that, Dead Rider is a model with a great attack, lots of movement, fantastic stats. And she can feed it a handful of cards multiple times a turn. So the only downside, and this is the only downside to the Dead Rider, you can't Kruligan to it. And that sounds crazy that I'm worried about the 4-point model.
I'm just
that is a
imagining.
big deal.
It is a big deal, yeah.
But apart from that, he's phenomenal. He's phenomenal, and I love him. So I play him a lot. Another one that I play all the time is Enslaved Spirit. Because especially if you have information overload. So Enslaved Spirits are 3 points. They're significant, and they drop scheme markers when they die. And if that's all they did, they'd be great. But they also have Chain Gang, so you can use them to reposition Molly, and it's fantastic. But a lot of times what you do is scheme marker, Chain Gang, scheme marker, and you got to remember that they have to be as far as possible away from each other, otherwise they will be within 4 inches, but you have to have them exactly on the opposite sides. But you do that, and then you've given Molly 2 markers that she can eat with Lost Knowledge and or use for information overload. So that's the thing, is that they're a 3-point significant model and Chain Gang. It makes them fantastic. They're really pretty wonderful. Now, the one that I want to use but I don't own is Sloth. Because Sloth has a lot of great synergy with Molly. So he has Rigor Mortis. So 8-inch range, 5-stat, willpower, TN10, target gain slowed. But if they're undead, they get fast instead. Well, you know what really makes Rogue Necromancy great? When it gets 3 attacks. So, yeah, let's Rigor Mortis the crap out of that. Like, all of Molly's stuff is undead. Or almost all of Molly's stuff is undead. So it's fantastic. Fast is great. And then his bonus action is a 10-inch range heal. Now, it makes them slow, so it's like, oh, well, that's terrible.
Not on Archie.
I was going to say, until you remember that Archie is too stupid to be slow. So he just heals 3. So I want Sloth for Molly and a few other things, but she seems like she has some really good synergy with him. Models that she wants to play are really good with him. So but otherwise it's mostly Dead Rider and Enslaved Spirit. Occasionally I'll do a Gishwen, because Molly's stuff all has terrible stats, and so it's a take the hit model. Like Gishwen are just useful in general. Also, if you didn't think you had enough scheme removal, it has Trail of Gore, so it has more scheme removal. Just in case you thought you needed more. But it's just a good model. And you can use it to protect your Rogue Necromancy or like Noxious Nephilim. You cannot use it to save Archie, because once Archie starts doing Archie things, Archie is not going to be within 2 inches of it. Which originally I took him to bodyguard Archie, and I very quickly realized, oh shit, this is not going to work. That said, like I mentioned, everything they do is good. They're just a good model. But that's what I've done with them before. But really, it's Dead Rider and Enslaved Spirit are the ones I use all the time.
Yeah, I don't think you take Dead Rider now that you have Noxious, though.
That's what I'm trying to gauge, is when I take Dead Rider. Because he's still good. He's still good. But Noxious does fill a similar role in that Noxious can move Molly around for me. So it's tough. It's tough. That said, at the moment, right now, all of my crews with Molly begin with Molly, put the Whisper on Molly, Noxious Nephilim, Archie. 2 Kruligans. And then I figure out what else I have space for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little surprised you didn't start with 2.
It's because I worked down the list. and I think I have it sorted by station. So enforcers show up before minions.
Yeah.
But
you played her without the Forgotten Marshal last time, and it was not as intimidating.
So, the guy famous on the forums for playing Molly really doesn't play the Forgotten Marshal, and so I wanted to try it. I realized that I am not good in, like, you can't. Molly's crew is resilient, but it is not forgiving. If you make a mistake, then your games are end. So I'm not a good enough player to be able to play without my quick, let's get a couple extra models out here, So the extra oomph that the Forgotten Marshal provides me, it's kind of a crutch for me, but right now I don't see how I'm going to play without him. So worst things could happen. Like I said, he gives you a gun, and Resurrectionists don't have a lot of guns. And for being super simple, his gun is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you put the Whisper on him, like you want to, so that you can ensure his summon, if you kill someone with his gun, you get to draw a card. Who doesn't like more card draw? So. That's Forgotten.
Any closing thoughts there, Kuro?
Oh, I'm just assembling models that have nothing to do with what I'm taking to Adepticon. So
Smooth.
No, I would say without the Kruligans, the Night Terrors would be super schemy, but the Kruligans scheme and deny your opponent's scheme, so
and they're 1 point less.
Kind of ridiculous. I mean, that's kind of moot when you're summoning, but
no, true. And honestly, like I summon the Night Terrors A, when I don't have a card to summon a Rabble Riser, and B, if I need, like, if I'm trying to do what is it, outflank? Yeah, outflank, stuff like that, where I need to be able to get into corners quickly, then I'll use them, because you can, you can get a surprising amount of movement with them before they even activate if you force discards with various things. So they can really get into position. And also, you're not scheming the first turn you summon them anyway. So you just kind of hide them in a spot, and then they can swoop out and get somewhere real fast. So,
They're
but
very good anti-gun tech.
most of the time, yeah, most people who don't have, a lot of ignores concealment, if they don't, then they're like, if you play into Ophelia, she has in her keyword, I think, one gun that ignores concealment. So you start throwing out night terrors, and she kind of cries.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have that.
So my closing thoughts: switch Cooligans to sidekicks, and let's update White Eyes to have 9 hit points in the app, please.
I will concur on that White Eyes thing because it freaked me out a lot.
Does it actually have 9 hit points?
Yeah,
It
it
has
does.
the card in the app has 9 hit points. The app has 7 hit points.
Like when
Oh,
in the game, yeah.
Problem.
Yeah, a little bit. Anyways, that will wrap it up for us. Keep it positive, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. See you next time.